let us head to Ari's town, where Ohio State and Texas will meet at Jerry World. Bevo will be allowed in the building because Jerry Jones, despite being an Arkansas grad, is a responsible businessman in the state of Texas and is not going to keep Bevo out of his building. Steve Sarkisian.
He also had a cameo in Landman. I don't know if you're caught up yet, but Jerry Jones.
Caught up. No spoilers for Landman. No spoilers.
It's nothing that would change anything about knowing what's going on in the show, but Jerry Jones has like a 90-second cameo in the show, and he was like a really good actor. Like his
Please tell me he's talking. Please tell me he's talking to John Hamm or Demi Moore. Or maybe Billy Bob.
He's talking to John Hamm.
Yes. Okay. Now I'm excited about that.
Electric, yeah.
But Steve Sarkisian, you had Adam Schefter drop this little turd in the punch bowl on NFL Countdown on Sunday. NFL teams interested in Steve Sarkisian. Ari, I can smell an agent trying to get a coach a raise a mile away. Like the last time this happened on this particular weekend with Adam Schefter dropping that particular turd in the punch bowl was Dan Mullen, January 2021. And it was the downfall of Dan Mullen. It began the downfall of Dan Mullen at Florida. I do not think that's going to happen with Steve Sarkisian. I don't. I think he's in a good spot. But this also screams we're trying to get our guy a raise here.
Yeah. You're better at like sniffing out is this a raise play or did an NFL GM say he's interesting?
He is interesting. I like the way he's developed Texas, but I also think we don't know necessarily. Like, there's nothing that screams great pro coach versus great college coach. Like the things that he's done at Texas that are really good, building NFL draft picks, recruiting offensive linemen well, and then scheming them up. Like, I don't know. The roster construction is unique to college. Like, he's not going to be able to construct rosters like that in the NFL. So I think it's probably more of a let's get our man a raise play. But this also is a game where we're going to see his roster construction tested because Ohio State is loaded at every position. And as you mentioned, Ari, time and time again in the past week, Ohio State is in buzzsaw mode. Texas is going to have to be its absolute best to win this game or to keep this game close.
What's the path, Andy?
The path is you disrupt Will Howard, you get Will Howard on the ground, and they look. Texas has, Baron Sorrell, Colin Simmons, like they got dudes who can do this.
Mm-hmm.
They can do this. What's Ohio? If Ohio State has a weakness at all, it's the offensive line. Though I would argue the offensive line has been outstanding in the playoff. But Texas front seven versus Ohio State offensive line.
Texas front seven
has to win that.
It probably gets the advantage going in, right?
I would say so, yeah.
I'm not so much concerned about, I don't know that Ohio State's going to drop 40. I don't know how Texas is going to score, man. Here's the thing about Ohio State.
This is the issue.
No one is talking about because Jeremiah Smith is that good. Their defense is insanely good. Ohio State,
it was good all season, but it's gone up a level in the playoff.
The way that Ohio State's defense played against Oregon is the story of that game. It's not Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith is really, really good, and you can say it from the mountaintops 100 times. My saucy take in week 3 of the season was he's already the best receiver in college football. People thought that was nuts. Here we are. He is a player that I believe could start in the NFL tomorrow. That's how good he is. Ohio State's defense, the way they played against Oregon, made the best offensive unit look foolish for a large portion of that game. They were arriving at the football. They were hitting. They were containing. They were covering. They were doing everything imaginable. And that's the defense that has been constructed here. You have a front seven on Ohio State's defense that has 4 or 5 players in that front seven that should be in the NFL right now.
Right. JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer were so freaking good against a very good Oregon offensive line. Oregon has Josh Connolly and Johnny Cornelius are NFL tackles. And obviously Texas has NFL tackles too. I think Cam Williams at right tackle is going to be back. Obviously Kelvin Banks at left tackle, maybe the highest drafted tackle in the draft this year. So this is going to be a great matchup. And I'll point this out too. It's not just this. It is going to be a line of scrimmage game, even though there's so many star playmakers, whether it's Jeremiah Smith or like Matthew Golden the last few weeks for Texas has been awesome. But there's so many star playmakers, but this really will be decided at the line of scrimmage. The Texas offensive line. If it's the Texas offensive line we saw at Michigan, you and I were there in Ann Arbor. They were pushing around a team full of elite defensive linemen. Elite. And Texas's offensive line pushed them around. If that offensive line shows up, if they play like that, there's a path for Texas. But you've got to have that.
This is a Michigan fan trolling, I think, but also might be making a good point here. If Texas tries to out-finesse, this is smash the numbers, Ferris Khan. If Texas tries to out-finesse the finesse Ohio State team, they will lose. They need to smash. Hopefully, Wink Martindale is consulting with Texas right now. Is there a smash mouth route for Texas where they run the ball and they stop?
Yeah, the Texas we saw in the Michigan game. They ran the ball well, but they also were explosive in the pass game because they were running the ball well.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, the thing about it is that, like, Oregon, how would you categorize Oregon on the finesse scale? Because I actually think that they're a pretty hard-nosed team. Like,
yeah, they're not a finesse team. Like, Oregon's not a finesse. Now, Evan Stewart only playing one snap in that game, it seems like that he was part of their game plan, and then he couldn't go, and then they had a problem. But also, Ohio State just had them locked down. Like I've said this before, but the behind the quarterback shot from the Ohio State Tennessee game and the Ohio State Oregon game, like it looks like complete misery for the quarterback because there is an Ohio State player covering every single person. And like there's nobody open.
The thing that scares me about this is that everybody thinks Ohio State's going to beat the crap out of them, and that always means that we're wrong. So I'm trying to figure out like how many points does Texas have to score in this game to win?
38.
How many times do they have to set 38?
I think it has to be a shootout for Texas to win.
They lost. There's no way.
I think it has to be. And look,
They're
can say that.
Score 38 points, Andy. They're not.
We have seen examples in the college football playoff of defenses that were dominant all year. I'll give you a great example. 2015 Alabama. That's the one that beat Michigan State 38-0 in the Cotton Bowl. The defense had been just suffocating all year. Alabama still won the national title that year, but only because Nick Saban brought a sky kick, onside kick out of his bag of tricks to start the fourth quarter because they had to steal a possession from Clemson because he knew they couldn't keep stopping Clemson's offense. We've seen these games. We've seen games where a defense that was really good ran up against a really good offense, and all of a sudden, now, is Texas this kind of offense? That's the question.
Matchup, we see a really elite, dominant defense with 10 players who are going to play a long time in the NFL versus an offense that can't score. Like they went 3.5 quarters against Arizona.
It's not that they can't score; it's that they just have these lulls, and they can score. But as you said, against Arizona State, they just took 2.5 quarters off. They stopped. And it broke their defense, by the way. Like, imagine Texas sustained some drives in the third quarter. I don't think Arizona State ever comes back.
Andy, do we want to discuss Quinn Arch, or do we just want to let it play?
Why not? It's YouTube. Let's go.
Why not? It's YouTube. Do you think that, let me set a line here, and this is from the Wasserman Made Up Lines book. Over under offensive snaps that Arch will take on Saturday for any reason at all. 9.5.
It's under. It's going to be under.
Where would you set the line?
I would actually set it at 1. Because obviously if Quinn Ewers gets hurt, he has to come in. That's not really a discussion. We're talking about a Steve Sarkisian choice.
They don't have a package for him where they would run 10 plays. Like they don't
They
have
haven't used that. They kind of needed it against Arizona State. They were not moving the ball, and they didn't use it.
Yeah, and like
at a certain point, are you just why can't you just believe Steve Sarkisian when he's like, Quinn's my guy? That's right. This is the Huel Black Edition, the ultimate meal in a bottle. 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, 7 grams of fiber. We all have busy lives. And I'm telling you, for my family's busy lives, Huel has been a godsend because for me, I can have one of these. Breakfast is taken care of. I have all the nutrition I need. My son can bring one for lunch. My wife grabs them to take to work for lunch. Life does not always leave room for a complete balanced meal. That's where Huel comes in. This podcast is sponsored by Huel, Huel, the world's #1 complete nutrition brand. It's a complete meal in seconds. Just grab, sip, and go. No more skip meals or unfulfilling snacks. Huel makes it easy with nutrition that fits into your life. And right now, you can try it for 15% off with the code Staples15 at Huel.com.
And also, too, I read a really good column from our former colleague, Sam Kahn, at The Athletic. And he wrote about Quinn Ewers, and I thought it was a really good point. That Quinn Ewers is kind of always judged through the lens of what he isn't because of where he was ranked and who he's compared to on his own team, and he's never viewed through the lens of what he is. And I think that people overly neg him because he's not Peyton Manning, or he hasn't turned out to be the greatest quarterback that's ever played, like his recruitment promised. But like also too, can we like give the guy a round of applause for 5 seconds for that like big nut energy there when he threw that touchdown pass in
13.
Like, I mean, like,
I don't care how open the guy was. Like,
and like he had, like, I mean, if Quinn was soft or sucked, like he would have like choked probably, right? Like he has come through a lot for them. So like, I understand Steve Sarkisian's point of like, this is our guy. We have won a lot of games with him. He's a ton of experience. He's never too hot. He's never too cold. Like I like all that. I'm not saying bench him, but if you brought out in the middle of the second quarter, after Quinn played the first quarter, Arch Manning, and had like 10 good plays with him that you felt really good about, where you exploit his ability to run on designed runs, but also catch Ohio State off guard by throwing it in situations where it feels like you're running. Isn't that the time and place for it? Like if you like prepare for it, you hammer it. You spent the entire playoffs getting to a point where you feel good about it. Isn't this the time and place? The time and place for Arch Manning wasn't throw him into the game in the second quarter of the Georgia game. That's not the time and place. The time and place is knowing you're going to do it, knowing you're going to rely on it, trying to count on catching your opponent off guard. Why wouldn't they try it? Especially if they get into another offensive lull. Like, I think that he will play more than one play on Saturday for non-injury related reasons. Okay.
We'll see. But I think Steve Sarkisian has made his intentions pretty clear. Unless he's been sandbagging. Unless this is the okie doke he's going to bring out.
I don't think that bringing Quinn in for 12 plays as a change of pace quarterback means that he is not, that Quinn's not their guy. Like, I don't think it's one or the other. I think you could be both.
We'll see.
I think that means they wouldn't bench Quinn fully.
Ferris in the chat says the only way Texas wins is a low-scoring game, which is, I understand. Ferris is a Michigan fan, so he's why I don't know that we're ever going to see that again from this Ohio State team, because I don't think Ohio State, like, I think they've learned enough to not get roped into that game.
The thing that Michigan has done,
Texas rope them into that game.
The thing that Michigan has done to Ohio State, and there is a mental element to this, and they might not like hearing it. Michigan has done a tremendous job from a culture standpoint, roping Ohio State into playing their football game. And I think that there is a major mental element in that from the coach and the players in that game. And with the pressure that's in that game, you are more susceptible to having to be in that situation. I don't know if duplicating what Michigan does is a reasonable ask for other teams. And that's a respect to Michigan and their culture, right? Like, and the fact that Sherrone Moore was able to do it in year one without Jim Harbaugh and win it last year makes me feel really good about the prospect of his long-term success there. This isn't like a negative thing. This is a positive. But like, I don't know if like you could go to Texas and be just do what Michigan did. Because I think it's a very deep and complex environment that is not something that you can duplicate through trying to run hard. I think it's
I also think Ohio State has figured out what it did wrong in that game. And
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah. I realize it's so super simplistic, and I'd love to give Chip Kelly and Ryan Day truth serum and be like, is it really as simple as you guys just didn't know to throw to the guy that no one can cover?
You know what I think it was? Because like, listen, the thing that was really interesting to me about the Ohio State-Michigan fallout, Andy, was everybody who was watching the game was like, throw it to Jeremiah Smith downfield. Like, everybody was yelling that, right? Or try to open up the defense by throwing it a little bit. Like, because Ohio State threw the ball, I think, statistically more than they did against Tennessee and maybe Oregon in the game. But it was when they threw and how they threw. They kept trying to run the ball on first down. And I feel like Ryan Day, like, this is my truth serum for him. And here's my theory. You tell me if you think I'm nuts. We joke about the Lou Holtz thing, right? Like, I want to know where Lou Holtz is right now. I think Ryan Day is a very competitive person. And even though he is subdued in news conferences, I don't think that people actually know that he's a psychopath when it comes to wanting to win. But I think in that specific game, Ryan Day is convinced not only does he have to beat Michigan, he has to do it by playing the way that they do. I think he wants to outrun them. I think he wants to beat them at mouth-to-mouth football. I think he wants to prove that Ohio State is tough. And the problem with that is that Ohio State's roster is not constructed to exist in those type of games. Ohio State's roster is constructed to play like they did against Oregon.
And it's constructed to beat teams like Oregon and Tennessee and Texas.
Especially
where you match up athlete for athlete and you have better athletes.
And the thing that's so crazy about that game, Andy, is that Ohio State has a patchwork offensive line, and you were running into the two best interior defensive linemen in the entire sport for 4 quarters. And it's like, I think that it was so important to him to show Michigan that Ohio State is better than them in that regard that he forgot about winning. Honestly, like because that's the only rational thought I can come up with on how that happened.
Well, it doesn't matter because the Michigan game's over. Like, that's in the past.
No, I know, but as it pertains to Texas's past,
there will be no winged helmets. There will be no hail to the victors.
But the question is, does Texas have anything to learn from them? Or is that an isolated, weird incident?
No, because they can't make Ohio State slip into a mindset. Like, you can't trick Ohio State into that mindset because there's no winged helmets. There's no the victors. Like, all the trappings of that game are gone. You are in the Cotton Bowl. You are in Jerry World. Like, Bevo is on the field. It's a completely different environment. Now, the thing is, of all the teams left in the tournament, Texas is the one best equipped to go athlete for athlete with Ohio State.
And Texas also is a hard-nosed, tough team.
Yes.
Like, so they have that aspect of it. They're really, really good, man. I feel like if Texas had one Jeremiah Smith, okay, I'm not going to say that. If they had one Ryan Williams or somebody that was just a game, if they had Xavier Worthy.
What if Ryan Wingo is that and we see it this game? Like, is that he's a freshman too?
And that would change my perspective.
Yeah.
Because Golden's good, Wingo's good. I think they're going to have Duke, but they don't have a receiver that scares the shit out of you.
You got Isaiah Bond, who's obviously made at least one. He's playing. Yep. Matthew Golden's been great.
Yep.
Silas Bolden has had he had the punt return. I think, I get everybody wants to get back into the Ohio State Michigan thing. I think the only way Texas wins this is in a shootout because they made one fewer mistake, but they have to make it a shootout.
I think
their offense has to not fall asleep in the middle of the game.
I think that people want to get into the Michigan thing because it is one of the most dumbfounding results of the modern history of our sport.
I know, but it's over. It's gone.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with this game. And everybody wants to bring it back, but that's not this game. So, all right. Texas is a 5.5-point underdog in this game. Who you got?
Ohio State. And I might take
To
an
cover?
alternate line.
And yeah.
I think I would take like minus 14, maybe and a half if it was 4
Wow.
3-1. Yeah.
You would go up to minus 14.5. You would go up
No,
to
I'm just
more
saying
than
like
two
for the
touchdowns.
odds. That's not my official prediction. I'm saying I might
No, but
play
you
that.
think this game is the line's off on this game.
I don't know. I think that Ohio State could win by 3 touchdowns though.
Here's my thing. I went into this thinking it was going to be about a 7.5-point spread and was ready to pick Texas to cover and Ohio State to win. The fact that it's stuck at 5.5, give me Ohio State for both.
Yeah.
Because it's not, again, I don't take all that Michigan stuff out of it. I don't care about that anymore. If Ohio State plays the way it played against Tennessee and against Oregon, Texas is not going to win. There will be an extended period where Texas's offense falls asleep, mostly because they got choked out by Ohio State's defense. And that will be the problem. Even if there are moments where Texas can get guys open and can make explosive plays down the field, the way Texas wins is that they continue to score the whole time.
You know what this game
And the Ohio State defense has played so well, I'm just not sure that's possible.
I think it's 38-20. That's like the type of score I'm anticipating.
Which is why I think Texas needs to score 38 to win. Like 38-35 is the way I see Texas winning the game. I just don't know if they can do that against this defense. So I'll take Ohio State to win and to cover.
But also too, the line has opened at 5.5 and 6 and has kind of stuck there. I know there's action on Texas, and I know the entire public's on Ohio State, so maybe something weird will happen. Like you never know. So I don't know.
Listen, I for the viewer's sake, I hope so. I want this to be a competitive game. I don't care who wins. I want it to be competitive. Ohio State has made these games uncompetitive, which has been very, very interesting.
This is a thing that I wanted to bring up that we didn't bring up before we picked, but like the game is in Dallas.
Yep, as Keyshawn points out in the chat.
And tickets are insanely expensive because my wife wanted to take my daughter to the game. And we looked and like upper deck is $600. I don't know like what the fan turnout's going to be, but I'm anticipating a very heavy Texas crowd, although Ohio State travels really well all the time.
It's a pretty easy flight too. And when you have that large of an alumni base,
there's just a lot of Ohio State fans in Dallas too. Like it's just not. But I wonder if like the game being in Texas matters at all.
I don't think that it's in Texas. I don't think that matters. I think whoever plays better is going to win. I think if Texas doesn't fall asleep on offense, they have a chance. But if Ohio State chokes them out for 2 quarters, the way Arizona State did, the Texas defense is going to break sooner than it broke against Arizona State. And you know how much I love Texas's defense. But this is a level of playmaking that, like, Texas lost twice to Georgia this year. This is the amount of talent that Georgia has on defense, plus elite playmakers on offense that Georgia doesn't have.
Ohio State
Texas is going to beat that.
Ohio State has a better offense and defense than Georgia.
Correct. Correct.
And I think you could make the case that their offense is 20 times better and their defense is twice as good.
I don't know if their defense is twice as good, but it's good. It's better.
Their defense is insane, Andy.
Sorry, I'm aware of how many NFL players they have in their defense, but I'm also
no, it's insane. But like Caleb Downs just existing in the back end as a luxury item is just like unbelievable.
That's why I'm picking Ohio State, because the odds are stacked against Texas in this game. Like Texas is going to have to play almost perfectly to win it, but Texas has the players to do this.
Like if Colin Simmons goes crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Isaiah Bond,
Anthony Hill, like Texas has got some great players too.
Yeah,
but
you got me in the Wingo. You got me in the Wingo chamber a little.
Yeah,
bit.
Wingo's
good.
Fun.
He's
like
really
Wingo's going to be good.
Yeah.
But and this is what I keep saying, they got to play perfect. That's how it happens. That's how the upset happens. Otherwise, if this Ohio State team is the team we saw against Tennessee and is the same team we saw against Oregon, I don't know that anybody left has a chance.
I don't want to look at it too much.
I also think it's very hard to do that 3 or 4 games in a row.
Is Ohio State Notre Dame national championship like ratings nirvana?
It's up there. It's up there. So we'll see. That's your pick. That's your national title game.
It's my national title game right now.
You
know what's great is that if Ohio State wins, like I get to come on the show and be like, "Yeah, I told you." But if Ohio State loses, I'm like, "Hey, check out my bracket." Like I can't lose.
Either way, it's great. It's beautiful. I have nothing. I got nothing. I got nothing. But that's okay.